A very warm welcome to everybody joining us online from around the world. I know we've got folks joining not just from within China, but also Europe and other parts. I think the timing is critical and so hugely important with various factors that are converging from the standpoint of the need for sustainability and solutions to tackle some of our pressing challenges, especially in the space of climate action and the urgency of it, as well as building up local resilience, environmental stewardship, etc. And in this vein, I think remanufacturing is such a hugely critical piece of the set of solutions that can be employed from the standpoint of transitioning towards that world. From the standpoint of the arc of the webinar today, it's going to be sort of three broad themes. We're going to start a little bit with talking about the current state of affairs from the perspective of remanufacturing in China, what our panelists see as trends that are already sort of present or emerging, and where the direction of the industry might be going, as well as what the future opportunities are in this landscape, both from the standpoint of business opportunities, investment. I had the good fortune of connecting with our panelists beforehand. They were generous with their time, so I got to know a little bit about their work and background. So I will introduce briefly each of the panelists, and so I'd invite the panelists to turn their video on so everybody can participate. And I will briefly introduce everybody, and then I'll ask each of the panelists to talk a little bit about the work that they're doing. So joining us from the company Enquiry is Julia Ma. She's the head of key account management, which is Enquiry was created as a joint venture between two companies, the BMW Group being one of them, with the premise of supporting and being an enabler of the remanufacturing industry. Our second panelist is Clemens Ortgies. He's a board member of CPRA Europe and also the manager of sales and service of YC Europe, a subsidiary of the Guangxi Yuchai Machinery Company. Our third panelist is Mike Yu. He's a strategic advisor for Nexus Automotive and the general manager of IRM e-commerce, which is based in Shanghai. And our fourth panelist is Philip Huang. He's the general manager of Guangzhou Huadu Worldwide Automotive Transmission. So thank you, everybody, both for the time that you gave to me to have a quick chat before we started, and for your time today. So I'd invite all of our panelists to turn their cameras and your mics on. Great. So Julia, starting with you, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your work at Enquiry and the company itself? That'd be great.
Yes, thank you, Rajiv, for the introduction. Like you already mentioned, I'm working as a head of key account for the company Enquiry, which is a joint venture between BMW Group and Interzero. And regarding remanufacturing, we are offering like two main services for the industry. One is the service for remanufacturing project management and consulting services, which we are already doing, for example, of course, for BMW Central in Europe, but also in the US and also in China. And the other main pillar is the reverse logistics setup, which we already also have implemented for BMW, for example, in Germany, in the past also for Spain, and of course in China since 2 years.
Great,
right, and,
thank you.
Yeah, and during my time at Enquiry, we have already conducted several remanufacturing projects in China, meaning bringing several different automotive components into the market.
Great, thank you, Julia. Clemens, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your work? Yeah.
My remanufacturing history started 20 years ago in a company for engine remanufacturing. During this period, I also was named as the president of FIRM, the European Engine Remanufacturing Association. Last year, beginning of last year, we merged FIRM with APRA, Automotive Parts Remanufacturing Association in Europe. And as a former president, I stayed then as a board member, and I was just a couple of weeks ago re-elected as a board member. And I'm leading the engine reman group within APRA Europe. So if any member of APRA is related to engine reman, he can join our group. We have special meetings, special webinars, and exchange of information. We are also linked to the World Engine Remanufacturing Council, which is a worldwide institution. On the other hand, I'm working for YC Europe, and YC Europe is a subsidiary of the Chinese company Guangxi Yuchai Machinery, which is the engine remanufacturer, one of the leading in Asia. Sometimes is on position number 1, sometimes on 2. And we are the branch and the sales channel in EU and Turkey for the products which are diesel and gas engines from 30 kilowatt to 3000 kilowatt. We are also taking care about the aftermarket and the service. So we are yet not importing reman products, but I think sooner or later we will do this as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Clemens, and welcome. Mike?
Yes, thank you, Rajiv. So I'm from IIM Shanghai. You know, actually, my company name IRM, where I come from, is come from remanufacture, RM. I is like internet, iPhone. So this is when I set up my company, reman is one of company's business. So before I set up my own company, I also worked for, in the past, I worked for Garrett, Borg-Warner turbocharger. And TRW right now is a ZF, TRW and Continental. They are mailing for braking system. So I'm very happy today to join this webinar organized by Rematec. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And Philip, welcome. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your company?
Hi, good day to everybody. I'm Philip Wang, come from worldwide automatic transmission company. We based in Guangzhou, China. Actually, we are the biggest automatic transmission manufacturer in China. We start from 1998, and last year we produced around 60,000 transmissions and another 100,000 wire body on Medtronic unit. We have authorized by ZF, Jetco, and Aixin, and also the car manufacturer like the GM, Nissan, Hyundai, Kia, Sanyong, and the Chinese local brand Chery, BYD. So we do the transmission in manufacture for over 24 years, and now we start the new energy vehicle business that start from 2016, because you know here in China you already have a lot of the new energy vehicles. So the battery or the motor or some other component like electric compressor or the control unit, we also do the manufacture for the new vehicle, new energy vehicle. So it's very pleasure to be in this webinar. So hope to share information and we can explore the manufacture business both in China and overseas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Philip. And we're actually very lucky to have Mr. Xie Jianjun join us. Originally, there was a conflict, but he's been able to join us. So a warm welcome to Mr. Xie as well.
各位朋友，大家好。非常高兴与大家分享中国汽车零部件再制造行业近期一些最新的信息。也非常高兴，大家能关心关注中国汽车零部件再制造行业的发展。应该说，近一段时期，中国政府越来越明确地认识到再制造对实现可持续发展所做出的贡献。数据显示，汽车零部件再制造与传统的废旧回收处置模式相比，能够回收原型产品蕴含附加值的70%以上。与原始制造相比，可节约能源消耗80%，节约材料70%以上，降低制造成本30%到50%。与制造原型新品相比，对环境的不良影响明显降低。为此，中国政府大力发展汽车零部件再制造产业，对汽车行业减排、减碳和节能降本，推动汽车行业碳达峰、碳中和的战略目标的实现，具有重要的意义。纵观国际社会，发展汽车零部件再制造产业在全球范围内已形成基本共识。发达国家汽车零部件再制造发展经验，应该值得中国汽车再制造产业界的同仁学习和借鉴。中国汽车零部件再制造产业的发展近期呈现出快速增长的趋势，这一方面主要表现在行业规模和政策支持两个主要方面。中国再制造产业发展历经多年，现已初具规模。中国汽车零部件再制造产业在探索中不断前进，通过努力，再制造关键技术取得了重要突破，在原材料供应、技术标准、市场营销、配套服务等体系方面基本建立。近年来，在政策助力和后市场的拉动下，中国汽车零部件再制造产业稳步发展，形成了一定的规模。产品呢，也从传统的汽车发动机、变速箱、转向器、发电机、启动机、涡轮增压器等，开始扩大到新能源汽车的3电系统。再制造产品逐渐被消费者所接受，部分产品呢还实现了出口。据初步统计，在2021年，中国汽车零部件再制造生产企业已经接近700家，占全国再制造企业数量的35%以上。汽车零部件再制造产值达到200亿元。这些呢，为汽车零部件再制造产业今后的发展打下了良好的基础。中国政府呢，近期出台了多项的扶持政策，再制造产业的发展可以期待。近几年呢，中国政府陆续出台了多项政策法规，推动再制造产业的规范、健康、快速发展。其中，报废机动车回收管理办法明确指出，拆解的报废机动车5大总成，具备再制造条件的，可以按照国家有关规定出售给具备再制造能力的企业，经过再制造予以循环利用。这一改革性的举措，为零部件再制造行业的发展提供了政策的依据。中国的国家发改委等8部委呢，还联合发布了《汽车零部件再制造规范管理暂行办法》。这一全球首创的再制造规范管理的办法，对再制造产业的规范化发展提出了具体的要求。此外，中国政府在“十四五”循环经济发展规划中，也进一步明确了再制造产业发展的规划目标和要求。 在近期，中国政府在推动再制造产业方面，主要有4个方面的这个情况可以引起大家的关注。首先，中国政府明确提出要求整车生产企业开展再制造业务。中国政府近期发布的相关政策法规提出，整车企业向汽车后市场提供的配件中应该明确包含再制造的部件。同时呢，相关部门也正在酝酿出台相关的法律法规，明确再制造配件所占的比例。同时，中国政府已经把整车企业开展再制造业务和向社会提供再制造产品的行为列入整车生产企业践行社会责任的一部分。中国的工信部也已经开展这方面的试点工作。目前，中国的主要整车生产企业均已经开始积极的布局再制造的工作。中国汽车工业协会计划于7月20号左右在中国召开首次推动整车生产企业再制造工作的座谈会和这个培训工作。第二一方面呢，在中国目前车辆保险公司开始在保险理赔中大量的使用再制造产品。近2年呢，具有高性价比的汽车零部件再制造产品越来越受到车辆保险公司的青睐。随着中国开展的车辆保险费率改革的逐渐深入，保险公司对车险理赔维修成本降低的压力越来越大，选择使用再制造产品已经成为目前中国车辆保险公司的迫切需求。从2020年开始，中国平安、人保、太平洋3大保险公司均已开展规模化使用再制造产品。这一市场需求的变化还在逐步的放大。据初步估计，这一市场总体规模将超过3000亿元。同时呢，中国政府也在出台相关的法律法规，明确支持保险公司在车辆保险中使用再制造产品。此举为保险公司规范化、规模化使用再制造产品扫清了法律障碍。第三一方面，新能源汽车的部件再制造市场潜力巨大。据中国汽车工业协会的官方消息，截止2022年3月底，中国汽车保有量达到了 3.07 亿辆。在中国，保有量超过100万辆的城市有79个，其中超过300万辆的城市有20个。新能源汽车的保有量接近了900万辆。2022年前3个月，新增新能源汽车100万辆。新能源汽车目前占到汽车总量的 3% 左右，比去年同期增长 138%， 呈现出井喷式的增长态势。中国新能源汽车的保有量已占到全球市场的 46%。未来，中国将成为全球最大的汽车后市场，也将成为新能源汽车最大的市场。再制造产品、新能源再制造产品市场的规模在中国潜力应该说是无限的。第四一个方面，中国政府正在逐渐放开发动机、变速箱等高附加值汽车零部件产品的再制造保税业务。众所周知呢，中国一直禁止从事主要的废旧汽车零部件进口的业务。作为再制造的原材料，旧的发动机、变速箱等高价值零部件不能进入中国市场。这也制约了诸如像奔驰、卡特彼勒 康明斯这样的跨国企业在中国开展的再制造业务。中国的汽车零部件再制造企业界、行业专家、学者一直在呼吁和游说中国政府开放这一市场，与世界再制造贸易接轨，放开作为再制造原材料的废旧汽车零部件进口贸易。近2年，随着中国政府对发展再制造产业的正确认知，以及中国汽车零部件再制造产业的规范化发展，中国呢正逐渐改变进口的贸易措施。目前呢已经出台措施，批准先期开展发动机、自动变速箱等高价值汽车产品的再制造保税加工业务。初步决定利用中国汽车产品供应链的这个优势和劳动力的优势，面向国际市场开展再制造业务。我们在这里呢，也希望各界同仁能够关注中国汽车零部件再制造产业的政策走向，积极的参与与中国企业的合作，实现多方的共赢。谢谢大家。
Perfect, thank you. If all the panelists could turn their cameras and mics back on, that'd be terrific. And for all of us, all of you joining us today, this webinar is being recorded. There was so much great information in the presentation that was pre-recorded by Mr. Xie. I'm sure you want to go back and take a look at that. So this will be recorded, or is being recorded, and will be posted if you want to review that information again. So a big thank you again to Mr. Xie for pre-recording that and for that information. So I want to kind of get into, as I'd mentioned at the beginning, the arc is sort of talking about the current state and then where we go down the road. And I'd like to start, we're in this sort of post-COVID, post-pandemic world, and there was certainly a lot of challenge and disruption as well as opportunity that came with that. And I wondered, maybe Julia, if you could kind of start us off, what your experience has been in terms of the way businesses have responded or reacted in a positive way, coming off of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. I think besides the pandemic, the automotive industry was partly also suffering from other shortages, like the chip shortage. I think there was like 1 year ago, where I think due to pandemic, but also due to like a natural catastrophe, some plants have to be closed, and therefore also the new part or the new car production was also affected by this shortage. And we had this case for a customer in which case he couldn't produce any more new steering gears due to the chip shortage of their suppliers. And in this case, we could support with a reman project of remanufactured steering gears to at least bring more than 300 cars off the series production, because when you can't produce any longer in the series production, it means like the production plant has to stand still, and this costs a lot of money to the manufacturers. So in this case, remanufacturing was really a solution in case of another supply alternative. So in this case, I really consider remanufacturing as a possible or new solution for facing these new issues. And I think shortages in other components, little components, electric components, will happen all of the time in the future. So I think in this case, remanufacturing should be really considered by every car manufacturer in order to also tackle these issues.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think even I heard anecdotally that there's been, as soon as the supply chains were disrupted globally, there were customers coming back to OEMs and saying, can you look at remanufacturing parts that you never considered before? So I think that really kind of shows that the opportunity is there. It's a matter of innovation and will, and really kind of adopting that as a central piece of how we think of how we're designing and producing products. Thank you also for mentioning, broadening it out beyond, we think of the automotive industry, and that can seem sort of on the heavy industrial side, but also the electronics components and electrical components, which are and also can be remanufactured. And I think that's an important piece to talk about. It's not just the automotive sector, but there are various industries where remanufacturing can and is and should be done, and certainly has great opportunity. In that vein, in the presentation, this term new energy vehicles was mentioned. And Philip, you've been in this industry for many, many years. Could you talk a little bit about, what trends you're seeing in the industry, as the share of new energy vehicles starts to increase, certainly being supported by positive policies from the government. Could you talk a little bit about, what's happening there and how that affects remanufacturing?
Okay, thank you, Roger. Actually, here in China, all the vehicle is actually the average age of the vehicle is only 6 years. So I think for the remanufacturer, normally is the demand for the old car, maybe up to 6 years, 7 years. It's not like in European or in US market, the average age is over 10 years. So I think it's the business of remanufacturer in China is just the beginning. So this is one of my topics. For the next 3 to 5 years, I think that for the vehicle become older and older, so more and more the manufactured parts will be needed in Chinese market. This second, here in China also now is the biggest vehicle volume in China. Normally now is more and more car will produced in China. So I think maybe after 3 or 5 years, more and more car will be in China, and then we can export the car to all over the world for the remanufacture. Because another way, Mr. Xie already told us that the new energy vehicle is become more and more popular in China. For the last 6 months, the sales of the new energy vehicle is up to 20%. They will say they will up to 50% on 2025. Next 3 years, the new energy vehicle will be more popular in the world. So more and more diesel or the fuel engine vehicle, I think maybe export or maybe scrap. So you can get more car in China for remanufacture. The third point is that now China is around to do the remanufacture business in some special room. Before, China is not allowed to import all the core of the automobile or the vehicle. Now they have some pilot area. They will allow to bring the car in and then do the remanufacture in the special room and then export in some special area. Now this is only pilot area, not for every city. Maybe it will be announced later. Okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
No, that's great. Thank you, Philip. So it sounds like the ratio is going to shift, to sort of a 50-50 split, right, between new energy vehicles and, gasoline-based vehicles very soon in the next few years. And to your point, as that happens more, there is a likelihood that from the standpoint of spare parts, there might be a diminishment of new spare parts being manufactured, and so then remanufacturing OEM parts to support vehicles that are already in the marketplace might also be an opportunity there. So very, very helpful. Thank you. Mike, you've also been in this space for a long time. Could you talk a little bit about, the shifting perceptions within the market and the industry, sort of, how this evolution is taking place, especially with supportive policies from the government, and where you see, some of this going?
Yeah, definitely. Last 2 years, government policy regulation, and also some notice, and also some pilot program is really good for reman industry, especially for these 5 major components. Now is allowed to supply to qualified remanufacturers can be to do reman activity. The second is, I think this is very important. The vehicle manufacturer, the pilot program for vehicle manufacturer for their extended responsibility, i.e. they should, eventually will be a law, they should some kind of activity involved. Right now is a pilot program. So if the vehicle manufacturer, they involve like a BMW, 2 or 3 years ago, they do the reman activity. So they can launch, they can offer the reman product to their car owner, give the car owner an option. They using their brand new one or factory reman. So this is a really good good action. So this is from vehicle manufacturer side. But on the other hand, when the vehicle manufacturer, they want to have a more parts or product line remanufactured, their OE supplier also will involve in, then also the independent. So one is for OE related, OES business for remanufacture. Right now, vehicle manufacturer doing. The other is like independent for the third party. Since the car agent and also car owners selection, I want to reman one. They also can buy from OES channel, or they can buy from independent channel. So now is really a good policy environment, and also for more sustainability for the environment. It's really good for whole industry,
Right. No, thank you, Mike. And when I had the conversation both with you and Mike and Philip previously, one of the things that Philip had mentioned that from an incentive perspective, which is to say to encourage consumers even to purchase remanufactured vehicles, or was it new energy vehicles? I think it was a shift towards new energy, right? So the registration cost was being waived, so that there is kind of this funnel being created towards the purchase of more environmentally conscious products in the new energy vehicle space. So it certainly looks like the government is doing, like you said, both sides of it, right? Not just from the standpoint of industry incentives, but also for consumers. I want to come to you, Clemens, from the standpoint of, the business opportunity side of things. And in our Q&A, we now, as well as previously, we asked some of our attendees to send us some questions. And one of them was about the ability to bring cores into China. And I think it sounds like, based on the presentation, that there might be something opening up there. But Clemens, could you, from your perspective and experience in having worked and set up facilities there, could you talk a little bit about what that looks like from a business opportunity perspective?
Yes, we have now our operation here since 2015, and since that time we sold some engines, and so we have a good population now in Europe. Some engines are now reaching 7 year, 8 year of age. So we have still some engines which have to be overhauled soon. And the question of our customers in Europe is, if we overhaul an engine by ourselves, can we get access to reman parts from China? The problem is that we cannot do it now, because if we collect the cores of the old parts, it's not possible to bring them back to China. So there are big restrictions now. We tried to bring some samples, or let's say for quality improvements, some samples to China. Even this was not possible, or it was very difficult and bureaucratic process. So on this stage, we said, no, we cannot supply you with reman parts. We have to sell you new parts from China. And I think they all are declared like new parts. So the demand is there, but the problem is the process how to return the cores. I think Europe itself has no restrictions to import reman part if the country like China is able to export these parts.
Thank you, Clemens. That's helpful. In terms of, from the standpoint of confidence in remanufactured products, there's always this need for, standards or standardization and certification, so that whoever is the purchaser has that confidence that they're getting something that is, from a quality perspective, equivalent to a new product, and it comes with that implicit guarantee. I guess this is more of an open question for whoever would like to answer based on your experience. What does that landscape look like in China from the standpoint of either standards or certifications that a remanufacturer has to adhere to make sure that there's confidence in the product from the standpoint of quality, functionality, and warranty?
I think this is not a big issue. I think if a standard is in place or already introduced, all companies will follow. And I think the basic standard is the certification of the company in terms of environmental issues, in terms of quality issues, in terms of, let's say, energy saving like we have now in Europe. I think this is the same in China. You have international standards to certify a company. If a company works concerning these standards, I don't see any problem. If you have additional standards for the parts, this should be also include the standards of the manufacturer, because he has the knowledge of the part, he has the design of the part. So all these standards have to be combined in one folder, and the companies have to follow this.
And are you seeing that that's being sort of brought to the forefront by virtue of some of the policy mandates, or is it more based on what the companies are bringing forward to make sure that the quality is, at that benchmark?
I think, first of all, the manufacturer knows everything about the part. So he is the first address to get standards, parts-related standards. The other things are maybe a little bit more of administrative standards, how to proceed or how to process remanufacturing. This can be done by maybe independent institutions.
Great, thank you, Clemens. Julie, I want to come back to you. Enquiry is in such a unique space from the standpoint of being an enabler, right, of remanufacturing. There's a couple of pieces that maybe I could tease out from your experience. One is sort of expanding beyond what we think of as traditional auto components. So, you mentioned electronics and electrical products. So what you're maybe seeing within that space, because that could potentially broaden out and have implications in other industry categories as well beyond automotive. So that's one. And then the second is kind of the reverse logistics, right? How, what the mechanism is, or the ease or challenges associated with bringing cores back for remanufacturing.
Okay, so your first question was where the opportunities of remanufacturing outside of the automotive industry lie, or?
Yeah, just, are you seeing anything there that, because you'd mentioned it's within the auto sector itself, there's electrical and electronic components, but are you seeing it trickle out further beyond the world of automotive, just looking at electronics in other industries, for example?
Of course, I think many industries are of course using electronic components in their production processes. Just I think you can think of the aerospace industry, or also the transportation industry in terms of like the train business, for example. But yeah, of course, we also have had cases with customers in the, how to say, in the beverage industry, where, like in this case, they produce beer, as is very popular in Germany. And I think also mentioned in the video, this is all of course partly driven by regulations, but also by sustainability aspects, as this is becoming more and more an important topic to reduce materials and energy consumption, and to make production processes more efficient or more cost efficient. So I think outside of automotive industry, many industries are affected by these electronic components, and are looking for solutions, and already asking for remanufacturing solutions.
Oh, that's great. No, and that's really important, I think, is that, to kind of broaden that vision out, because the opportunity is really, for the taking across a range of industries. And what about the, you'd mentioned Enquiry also supports sort of the reverse logistics side of things. Could you talk a little bit about that, and also what that sort of landscape looks like within China in terms of, the kind of closing the loop, so to speak, where are either opportunities or challenges associated with that?
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned, we have established those reverse logistics hubs, for example, in Germany, where we currently have 2 hubs, and in Spain, but also since 2019 in China, near Beijing, 300 kilometers away. And in this hub, we are collecting and consolidating all the old parts of the customer, and then after consolidating, we use our own developed sorting tool, it is called, to identify whether this part of this core is a good or bad core. And our tool will show with visual pictures and also explanations how to identify whether it's a good or a bad part, whether something is broken, or the oil is leaked. And in case it's a good part, it will be stored and then sent to the remanufacturer. In case it's a bad core, it will be recycled or dismantled and then scrapped. The challenge, of course, is to I think to get back sufficient cores, as the cores are like the base for remanufacturing the parts. And I think there are like 2 main sources of getting back cores. The first one is the cores from the warranty phase. Yeah, this is of course easier to get back. And the other aspect is like the cores from the customer pay area. In this case, you need to have established kind of a deposit system in order to increase the motivation of the customers, but also from the dealers, to send back those cores. I think here, definitely is a challenge to get back enough cores from both of the sources, and to establish such kind of a deposit system, because this deposit system is also connected to ownership, tax, but also IT issues. So it's like a combination of different fields, and this is why this makes so complex.
But certainly also sounds like there's an opportunity there to kind of streamline and figure out what a good solution might be.
Yeah. Because for example, in Europe or Germany, they already have established such a deposit system, and by this way they are also able to collect the cost from the customer pay business.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's very helpful to understand, Julia. We have some questions coming in, so I'm going to.
Sorry, Mr. Ramchandra, this is a Rematec agent.
Yes,
sorry
hi.
for jumping. Hi. Since you talked about the industrial standards and also certification from the third party, as you know that in China these days, the standards and also certifications are getting more important for the ramen industry in China. So would you like to have Mr. Xie to say something about it?
Oh, sure, please. Yeah, and if you could help translate, that would be terrific.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I will try my best. 谢面，您打开一下话筒，就对于这个认证和那个标准的事情，您讲两句。
现在是这样，中国政府呢，在出台的这个管理办法中呢，现在鼓励我们再制造企业，开展第三方的这个认证啊。然后我们中国汽车工业协会再制造分会，也出台了相关的这个认证的标准。目前呢，在中国这个第三方针对汽车零部件再制造企业的第三方的这个管理体系认证，目前已经这个正式的开始啊，已经有大概将近20多家企业通过了这个第三方的汽车零部件再制造专门的这个管理体系的认证。而且呢，现在作为欧洲最大的认证集团 TUV 莱茵也开始采用我们的这标准，我们中国的标准和管理的办法，在中国开展这个再制造的认证的业务啊。目前呢，也已经成功的为第一家这个整车企业就是发了这个认证的证书。而且据我们和莱茵集团的这个现在这个规划，也想通过莱茵集团把在中国实施的汽车零部件再制造的认证引入到欧洲啊，目前是这么一个情况。通过前一阶段的这个认证工作呢，应该说认证对于我们再制造企业的产品进入市场提供了一个非常好的这个背书。通过认证呢，使消费者和一些这个客户呢，对于再制造能有更多的信任感啊。现在包括保险公司也开始采取，就是要求认证的产品才能进入保险市场。
OK， 好的，谢明，我先翻译一下啊。Well, in China, actually, the government is incentive the industrial stakeholders to promote and to utilize and apply the standards and the certifications. And the CPRA also had drafted a series of management system certification programs and also standards, as well as the third parties like TUV and another German certification body. Currently, about over 20 remanufacturers in China had achieved the certification from the various certification bodies, which are renowned and recognized in China. Also, TUV is in the discussion with CPRA for a joint recognition certification program for the ramen industry in China. Also, the other German certification body, the name will be provided later, is also in a discussion with CPRA to refer the Chinese ramen standards in terms of management and remanufacturing process into the German process and to share this with the German industry. So that's the current information regarding certification and the standards of the ramen industry in China.
Great. No, thank you, Simon. That's very helpful. And thank you to Mr. Xie for providing that context. Yeah. So we're very close to wrapping up. There are a couple of questions that came in the chat. Mike, maybe you could help with one of these in terms of opportunities to collaborate or set up remanufacturing operations in India, in China. What do you see are some of the models that might work? Is the joint venture model, the usual way, or could you shed some light on folks who are thinking about investment, collaboration, that kind of opportunity that would help?
I think this is really depend on what kind of product line. Just like Clemens mentioned, if you for like a engine, some like a 5 key major parts, the core is not allowed imported at this moment. If you only made in China, core collected in China, fine, it can be in China. The other is maybe some products already remains very good in overseas. Right now, according to the importing regulation, the remanufactured parts imported is not allowed. Of course, it's funny, but this is the law. Maybe one day will be changed, but at this moment, this is the situation, or this is the challenger for reman industry in China. So considering what kind of the cooperation would be, definitely you should have a local partner will be better, since the core collection, the local knowledge, even some reman parts availability can be available in China, and also salesperson, your sale product also very important. Of course, if the operation in China, they export, no any limitation, i.e. you can export a reman product to the rest of the world. This really depend on the importing or destination country, their local policy.
Right.
So definitely, I think a joint venture or this kind of thing will be can bring the both parties' strengths.
Yeah.
The other is at this moment, for the reman, the labor cost also critical. If one day can be core is available or available locally, so can be remanufactured in China to the rest of the world.
Right. No, thank you, Mike. That's helpful. I want to be mindful of time, so we are at the 1 hour mark. There are a couple of other questions that I'm not going to be able to get to in our conversation here, but we will do our best to have them answered and maybe sent back to the questioner via email. So I want to quickly thank everybody for joining us, and our panelists in particular, and thank you again for our audience for your patience as we worked out some technical challenges right at the beginning, and we apologize for any inconvenience caused there. I think this is exciting. This is the first of several webinars that Rematec has planned over the next year. And there's certainly a great opportunity looming, I think, around the world from the standpoint of really mainstreaming this modality of remanufacturing. Product life extension over multiple life cycles is going to be critical, both from an environmental and resource stewardship perspective, as well as the life cycle implications from a greenhouse gas emissions perspective. And we're seeing this trend in terms of consumer expectations going in that direction as well. As you probably noticed in the chat, Turia has very kindly dropped in the information for the next 2 events. On the 20th of September, there's the Eyes on Electric Vehicles webinar there will be an online event. And of course, Rematec Asia is taking place from the 11th to the 13th of October. The links for those are in the chat. So thank you again, Julia, Mike, Philip, Clemens, and Mr. Xie for joining us. We're very grateful for your time and effort and input into making this interactive and also providing some insight into what the future of free manufacturing looks like in China. So with that, I will close. Certainly feel free to get in touch with the Rematec team for any other questions. So with that, thank you again, and take good care, and we'll see you next time.